Robby Andrews, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great, Dom. Thanks so much for having me. It's an absolute honor.
From my 10 minutes of talking to you before the podcast, you seem like a deep and insightful guy. So we'll just go straight into the deep end here. In 2009, as a senior in high school, I wish I was 4 years old. I wish I was following the sport of running because it seemed like a fun time. You set the U.S. high school indoor records for both the 800, which was 149.21, and the 1K at 222.28. And then the next year in 2010, at the World Junior Championships in Canada, you won the bronze medal over 800 meters. I'm curious, going back to those days in high school, do you feel like that was a blessing or a curse? Do you think it was a blessing you ran so fast, so young, or was it a curse in the sense of you set such a high bar? Was that hard to live up to throughout your career?
Uh, I've never been asked that before because it's always faster is better. Faster is the only way to do it. So I would say it was a huge blessing for me because I my junior year was good, not great. Like I wasn't even going into senior year, like when you're recruited by colleges and whatnot. Like I think I had run 4:12 as a junior, so it's back then it wasn't bad. It's just even my future college roommate Brett Johnson, he had run 4:08 that year, so he was I wasn't even theoretically the best recruit going in my state, let alone my school, going into senior year. And that kind of made me hungry though, because I I lost a lot as a junior, and I was just this hyper competitive kid. Like I wasn't necessarily training the hardest or the smartest. I was a basketball player and whatnot, uh, and but I had so much competitive drive that by my senior year, I was like, I remember telling my dad, who was coaching me at the time, I was like, Dad, I don't want to lose a race my senior year. And he's like, well, that's, in his head, he's afterward, he's like, that's unrealistic. Like, who who goes undefeated? Like, what are we talking about here? And he's like, like in the track. And I was like, no, like cross country too. Like, I think I can be good at cross. And he's like, yeah, he's like, great, that's a great goal, So he didn't shut me down, which was great. But I think neither of us were really expecting that because I wasn't like this huge, amazing talent. It was like I was okay, and now I was telling him I want to be the best. So trained a lot harder, trained a lot smarter that summer. Cross country, I didn't get a whole lot better at my state meet. I think I ran 5 seconds faster than I did as a junior. So that was like I remember being really disappointed with that actually. But we played we had a flag football tournament in school 2 days before, so I just remember my adductors being on absolute fire, and not to sandbag here, that sounds like a total sandbag, but I'm like, I don't know, I was really annoyed that I didn't run better. Anyway, so then after cross where I was disappointed again, my dad sat me down and he said, well, you do know we were training for like track this whole time, like you do realize you'll never be an amazing cross country runner. And I said, yeah, Dad, I figured that out pretty quickly. So I said I still want to set this national record, and the owner of that record at the time was Alan Webb, who I'm old. Alan Webb, he was, gosh, I think he had set that in 2001. Yeah, he was incredible. So he had all these high school records. He still has the high school mile record now. I think Hobbs got the 1500, but yeah, he still has the current high school mile record, and he had the U.S. overall mile record for a while at 346 until Yard got it last year. Incredible. But so anyway, I'd say all that to let you know that it was an Alan Webb record. So when I went to my dad saying I want to break this 1,000-meter record, and for him to look me in the eye and say, yeah, let's do it, that gave me so much confidence. And I didn't know anything. I just said, oh yeah, okay, that's what I'm doing. So get to indoor, and so 222 for reference is exactly 28.0 per lap. So in an indoor track, that's 28 seconds per lap. And so 28:56, or no, it's 20. I'm sorry, it's 20. It's like 28 and a half rather. So it's like 57, just about 57, 154, and then a 28. Okay, we'll say that. So I get through my first 400, the first two laps, and I'm 60 flat. So I'm like nowhere close to it. And my instead of my dad storming off, being like, yeah, well, he missed it. Uh, he's screaming at me saying, you can still get it, you can still get it. And I closed my last 600 in 122, and I get the record. So like it wasn't and I think I got it by over a second. Alan Webb had run 223, yeah, 223.3 or 223.4, and I just remember getting that record, and it meant so much to me, setting this goal back in the summer, and finally, and working really hard in my mind to get to there in the winter, and to get an Allen Webb record with this huge negative split. So I went 60 122, which that's I'm setting all this up, Dom, I promise. So I say that I think I had a lot more to go in that K, and then I think 3 weeks later I ran that 800, the 149.2, and the splits for that were very similar. They were 50. I was 56.2, 53.0. So I closed in 53 flat to 149.2, and
It's crazy.
yeah, man, I'm like, I think about that sometimes. I'm like, how did I do that when I'm 17? But so I think I had a lot more room to go. I think I was in 147 high, at least 147 high shape, maybe 147 low shape. I had run 403 for the mile. I imagine off of 222 with a 122 close, I imagine I was in 358 shape. Um, so I'm really glad I only took one real shot at that sub 4, instead of kind of chasing it week after week that you see some of these guys doing it now. Not saying it's bad. It's just, for me, I'm really glad I didn't have this huge target on my back that, like, oh, this is the next sub 4 miler coming out, because back then, 2009, it hadn't happened in a while, and now it's much more commonplace. But back then, to run 402 was like the nation leader. It's you see that, you see the list now, it's probably not even in the top 20, which is, it's just, that's another conversation we can have later on. But so I think it was a huge blessing for me to get a taste of how good I could be, and it didn't intimidate me to go into college and feeling like I still had a lot more to go, as opposed to, I think I tapped every second, every millisecond that I could in my high school career. I was running 40, 45 miles a week. Uh, wasn't taking it the most seriously. Like, yeah, I was training really hard, but I raced really hard. The training was kind of a afterthought. And so in my heart, I knew that I had a lot more to go, and I'm really glad. So I'm really grateful that I was able to have someone hold me back the way my dad did in high school. And instead of letting me see how good I could be when I was 17, he's like, you're going to be, he was a runner for life. He's still a runner. So he could always see that long-term approach. And I will be forever grateful for having that outlook, and that patience back in 2008, 2009.
As you ascend the levels of the sport, it's my personal belief it gets more complex. In college, you have to worry about scholarship, making the squad, making like your conference meet, getting your regional mark, qualifying for USAs. And then at the professional level, it's like your contract, bonuses, running a specific time to make USAs, yada, yada, yada. All that being said, I think high school or middle school, if you started then, the sport is at its most simple form where you kind of just go out there and you run to run. Do you ever think back to those days and miss those days where running was at its simplest form and those workouts were purely just, I'm going to work hard today? Whereas, maybe towards your pro career, it was like stress inducing going into the warm up because you felt like you had to hit a certain split that day.
Of course, it's a pros and cons, with it's a big Spider-Man moment. With great power comes great responsibility. It's like, you have this power to be one of the best runners in the world, so you have to act like it, and you have to train like it, and you have to treat it like a lifestyle. And I think that's something that me and my wife took very seriously when I was a professional, while she's still a professional now. Is we're not taking this time for granted that we are professionals. We know how finite it is. And yeah, sometimes that might mean taking a little bit of the fun out of it, and there's a balance to it. So we're constantly working on finding or keeping the fun in it, as opposed to just treating it like a job, just treating it like checking boxes, like, okay, did I get, blah, blah, X, Y, and Z done today? It's like, oh, well, hey, did you see the cows on the run today? Did you stop and say hi to them? Like, that was fun. Did you jump in the lake in the middle of your run today? No? Okay, well, maybe you do that next week. In high school, we wouldn't have thought twice about that. You saw a river, you were jumping in it, and it wasn't even a second thought. So I think it has its time and place. In high school, I'm really glad I didn't get burnt out when I was in high school, because you hear those stories, and it's really easy to just do more and faster and overanalyze, overthink, and so I'm really happy that I was able to truly enjoy it and have fun with my friends. And then college, it was kind of the same. Honestly, like, school was the hardest thing for me as college, but we still had a lot of fun. My training partners, and as a pro, we always tried my little training group in Princeton, with like Peter Callahan, Russell Dinkins, Kostelak, oh man, Patrick Rolo. Uh, those are names you might not be familiar with, but we did a really good job of having fun, while at the same time realizing it's like, yeah, Robbie's training to like try to win an Olympic medal, and that was the undertone for everything. So then, okay, how do we get back to that super fun high school where you're just a bunch of goofballs that are hanging out with your friends? So yeah, it's a really cool dichotomy, and I feel like we're still really figuring out that balance, because I think it is easy to go too heavy on either side.
For you, in hindsight, um, I think a lot of times when you get outside of a specific level within the sport, you think back to those ordinary moments, and a lot of times you miss them because when you were in those ordinary moments, you were always thinking to the next thing or the next accomplishment or achievement. Now that you are retired from the sport, and if you're in a different stage of life, do you ever think back to those high school or Princeton or pro days, and some of the maybe seemingly insignificant moments, but when you look back in hindsight, there was actually a little bit of extraordinariness to them?
Uh, I um I have this vivid memory. I honestly, I don't remember a ton from my high school. Oh man, I'm just getting old, dumb. Uh, but I have this vivid memory of me and my training group. We warmed up, and we'd wait for my dad. My dad was an assistant principal at a high school in Staten Island, New York, and we went to high school in New Jersey. So he had like close to an hour commute, and he, like, once or twice a week, he'd ask us to if we could practice late so that he could come to the workout. And of course, we wanted nothing more than that. So I just remember getting everyone together for the warm up, which was a big deal in high school because most people don't like warming up in high school. So we're like, yeah, we're doing this. We're gonna warm up. We're gonna do the whole mile and a half. We're doing the right thing. And we're doing our drills, and we see my dad running down. He's pulling his tie off of his neck, like it's like out of a TV scene. He's got his watch in one hand, and I was like, and we're all just like cheering him on. It was like, yeah, he made it, he's here, and it was just so cool that like we made our world like so small, and everyone was like held each other accountable. Everybody was working together. Like there was just so much harmony, I would say, and everyone was working towards the same goal. Whether it was, yeah, we had a bunch of guys trying to break 2 minutes for the first time, and yeah, I was trying to set a state record, but it's like it didn't matter. We all had our own goals, our own mission, and we had our fearless leader in Big Bob, and it I just thinking back to that, and like just that image of him running, especially now when he's coming home from work, had an hour commute, had to deal with kids all day, and he's running down to the track to meet us. It's just you never appreciate your parents enough as a kid. So looking back on that, and the upbringing he was able to him and my mom were able to afford me and my sister, it was it was really, really special, and the older I get, the more I appreciate it.
What are some things that your parents taught you that stick with you to this day? And one day, if you have kids, you want to instill in them, whether they participate in athletics or not?
My mom's she's a big lover, so she taught me to love everyone for where they're at, and uh, whether you're having a bad day, whether they're having a bad day, everybody needs some love, and try to find try to find that angle to make that happen. And because a lot of times the people in the worst moods, they need the biggest hug, and that's something that took me a long time to learn, because I'm very uh, introverted by nature, so I'm not really looking to interact with too many people if I don't have to.
Give big
But
hugs.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so then it was like, well, if I started noticing as a coach, while I was a volunteer at Princeton, if I'm seeing a kid that's like normally talking, and all of a sudden he's just like in the back, like kicking rocks or something, it's like, hey, what's up? And then if he like not lashes out, but if they're like fine and walks away, it's like, okay, yeah, I think that kid might need a hug today. And so just having, I guess, empathy would be the word for it, but being able to connect with people, and share love if you have it. That's something that my mom taught me. And and my dad really taught me to work together. He was a assistant principal, as I said. He ran collegiately at UPenn back in the '70s, late '70s, and he ran semi-pro with Westchester Puma uh, back in the '80s. And he's just a lifelong runner. He started coaching at Wagner College in Staten Island. That's how him and my mom met, and then he started coaching high school. So he's been a coach. He's been a runner his whole life, and he's always taught the importance of the group, and how important it is to have a support system. And he definitely practiced that with me as well. He made sure that me and my sister, we always knew that we had support. Whether we wanted it or not, my parents were going to be there for us. But that doesn't mean it has to be your parents. He was like that for all of his athletes. If they needed someone to be their support, he was going to be there for them. So that's how I look at it now. Is I want to make sure that if somebody does need help or support, or a hand to hold, then I can be there. Not that I have to be, but that if you do need it, I can be there. And so I hope that I can instill that in my kids, that they'll always feel supported, whether they want it or not. And it's their option to take it. But I will definitely always be there for them.
You had quite the remarkable career after high school as well. I think we made it sound like you were just successful in high school and got those three records, but you're an NCAA champion, two-time Olympian, U.S. champion, and you retired from the sport a few years ago. And I think, with age comes wisdom, as they say, but also the ability to sit with thoughts and reflect on a deeper level. So for you, a few years removed from entering into a next chapter of life, what are some of the biggest reflections from your running career, and more specifically stepping out of the very ultra competitive side of running?
Yeah, thank you, Dom. Yeah, it was definitely my running career definitely took off after high school, which I was super grateful for, because that is by no means the norm. And I kind of, it's a mix of luck and preparedness, I guess. My yeah, eh, you know. So I after so my I ended my career, my professional career, because of a couple Achilles injuries. I had a Lyme disease that went undiagnosed for a while in 2018, that I unfortunately didn't treat. Not going to say the best way, but the most appropriate way. So that kind of lingered with me for a little bit too long. And I had an Achilles surgery that I just have not quite been the same from. So that all happened when I was 27. So, and entering the later stages of my prime, but I would still say my prime. Um, so, for reference, I won a U.S. title in 2017 at the 1500, and then the next year uh, is when I found out I had Lyme disease. So, a year after winning a U.S. title, I don't think that's what I thought was going to be happening. I thought I was going to start counting how many of those I could get. I didn't know who Cole Hawker and yard and a goose were at that point. But and Cooper too. It was yeah, actually, wow, a super huge tangent here. So from 2012 to 2016, there were only two U.S. champions, Leo Manzano in the 1500, Leo Manzano and Matthew Sensuitz. And then from 2017, so that's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So there were five in those 5 years, there was only two different winners. And then from 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, there was four different winners. So it just
Crazy.
is weird, it's something to think about. And now since then, so Cole won in 21, but so 22 was Cooper, uh, 23 was Yard, and this year was Cole again. So now it's in the last 3 years has been three different people. So in the last, is that 8 years now? There's been seven different or six different winners. I don't know. It's
Crazy.
just, yeah, it's just really cool stat I think about sometimes is just how hard it is to be consistent at that top level and how truly great Leo and Centro were. Um, anyway, what did you ask me, Dom? Oh, about about what I learned
Stepped away from
after.
the sport.
There
Yeah.
you go. There you go. So that is one of the big lessons I learned is how freaking hard this sport is and how hard it is to be consistent. Because if you asked me in 2017 if I thought I was doing everything right, I would have said yes. I feel like I'm doing everything I can to be the best version of myself possible. And now a few years later, I'm like, well, maybe I wasn't. Maybe I could have been doing this. Maybe I should have tried this more. And that's something that you can only learn from taking a step back and looking at the whole picture. But in the moment, I mean, if somebody tried to tell me that I wasn't doing everything I could, I probably would have been offended and gotten mad at them. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm doing everything I can. And so I feel like having someone that has that perspective to be able to take a step back in your corner and just asking them honestly and truthfully, like, hey, what do you think I can be doing better? And not trying to like sugarcoat it or pamper you, be like, oh no, you're doing everything fine, like you just got unlucky, blah, blah. It's like, well, no, you're going to bed too late, you've been late to practice a lot, what's going on with that? You're wearing your shoes way too long, like I don't, just like whatever it is. So I would encourage someone to find someone in their corner that can have that just objective outlook on it, to be honest with you, and not take it personally, not be offended by it, because you want someone looking out for your best interest. And it's like, at least be open to that conversation, which for me, I took things very personally because this was my passion, this was everything to me, this was my like my love. So for someone to like insinuate or suggest that I was not treating it with the best, not treating it fairly or with respect, I wouldn't have had it. But so I think if I could go back and have a little less ego attached to it, I would.
I know there was a tweet by Ashen Eaton that resonated with you a lot, and you shared it with me before we started recording. Can you share that and your thoughts on it as it relates to your own love in retirement of the sport?
I'll read it. I'll read it because I don't want to mess it up, because it was a beautifully written tweet. And Ashen Eaton, for those of you that don't know, he is the former world record holder in the decathlon, and I'm not sure if he won two Olympics. I think he won one Olympics, won two world titles in the decathlon. He went to the University of Oregon, and his wife was Olympic bronze medal in the heptathlon. So he's this really cerebral guy, really articulate. Here we go. I got it for you. So someone that I looked up to highly, just for his professionalism and how much respect he had for the sport of track and field. I think most decathletes have that huge respect for the sport because they're doing everything in it. But just the way that Ashton was able to kind of always articulate that is something that I always respected, and you could just see that, you could just feel his love and passion for it just by watching him compete. Um, so here's his tweet: to athletes who are retiring or considering after this season and are having trouble coming to terms with moving on. Perhaps this is potentially useful. An approach I found helpful to overcome the problem was to treat moving on from sport like having someone you love die. It's often said, find your passion, find what you love. For athletes, our problem is that we did. We did find it and we did love it, but then it got taken away, injury, or we had to leave it, time. So that resonates pretty well with me. So I thought, how would I feel? What would I do if one of my kids died or my spouse? It would be painful beyond description. To not be with them every day, I'd be completely changed forever. Everything would remind me of them. They are a massive part of who I am. I am deeply influenced by them in so many ways. I would miss them and remember them every day. But I wouldn't want to try to stop these thoughts or try to forget them. I'd embrace the memories and the time we had together. I'd dwell on regrets about the things we didn't get to do or how much better I could have been. I'd also dwell on memories about incredible times, the things I did right, times when everything was the best. Importantly, though, I wouldn't go searching for someone or something new to replace them. They are too unique, too special to me. But I believe I would still be able to love something different, unique in its own way, maybe even having some of the same qualities. And I'd still think about them. I believe this is okay. And then it keeps going on a little bit more, but that was that hit the nail on the head for me. Yeah, I remember when I read that, I kind of got a little teary eyed thinking about, yeah, like a part of me died. It's something. What I loved most in this world for a long time is it's gone. Like I'm never gonna be able to get back to an Olympic final or a U.S. final or anywhere near the level that I was at as a high schooler or collegiate or professional. But it's just something that professionals, I feel like we haven't really talked about it much. And for Ashton Eaton, someone who, he's literally been at the peak of this sport, for him to have a thought like that, and I'm pretty sure he's found a very successful career after his athletics. So for him to have thoughts like that and be able to articulate his feelings so well, I just it I was really thankful that he was able to do that, because I validated my feelings. I definitely felt lost for a while. I was definitely still trying to hang on to that professionalism, and kind of felt like, the college, like, fifth year, going back to the high school football games, being like, oh hey guys, we still doing this, you mind if I play? And it was great. And of course my wife is still in the sport. She's a professional now, so I do enjoy helping her. But I think honestly the biggest turn for me was when I was helping her and I got to see her OAC teammates doing some of these workouts, and I couldn't even fathom it. It's like I could barely do Josette's workout. But then seeing her teammates, who are some of the best milers in the world, seeing what they were putting together, I was like, yeah, this is it. Like I can never see myself getting back to even a fraction of that level. And that like, I went home after that. I think I probably stood in the shower for a good half hour, just like, oh boy, that was it. And again, it's not bad. It's like it happens to everyone. It's time, and I think it's something you, as an athlete, you always know is going to happen. That it's like, yeah, you're only 25 to 30 for like 5 years or so, and people are having longer careers now, but that's probably just an average. And so you always knew you're going to retire. You always know that it's not forever, but you never want it to, doesn't mean you want it to come. So having that visualized, basically, for me, with those with the OAC guys, and then not just them. It's just that's just what how it presented itself to me. I knew it well before that, but so to have that, I think I needed it to help me move on. Like, stop kidding yourself. Like, it doesn't matter how many months in a row of training without an Achilles issue I had. I'm just not there anymore. But yeah. So what I wanted to say, Dom, thank you for asking, is how how do you deal with that? And what Ashton's tweet said, that that made so much sense is that you don't have to replace it. Like you're not. I'm not looking to replace my time as a professional athlete, my time as an Olympic athlete, and for a while I thought that's what I had to do was completely replace it and find this new thing. And it's like Ashton's absolutely right. You'll never be able to. If you search for that, you're never going to find it. And that just made me feel so much more settled. And luckily for me, I did find something with similar qualities as in terms of what's going on next, and that is being a coach. Whether that's I'm a strength coach at Kinesis here in Boulder, Colorado, and I'm also a run coach. So I'm 100% still involved in the sport, just on the other side of the coin. So now I'm the one that's able to take that step back and tell it's like, hey Dom, your 10-mile runs have been 8 miles an awful lot. Like, what's going on? You sure about that?
Probably a
So
little less
it's
than that these days.
yeah, just for the summer, right? Just for the summer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's I'm able to take these experiences that I had and apply them to other people. And of course, that this isn't for everybody. Not every athlete wants to be a coach or should even be a coach. But for me, it just I think going back to what my mom taught me about empathy, and that's just kind of how I'm wired. That coaching, I kind of have. I feel like I have a good temperament for it. Because I can get super emotional and I get fired up really easily. But also, I can be really patient and I can understand that where you're coming from is different from where a different athlete is coming from. So. Um, I got I don't want to say lucky because it's I think part of me always wanted to be a coach or at least wanted to be a coach, but I think I got lucky in the sense that I'm able to stay really close to the sport that absolutely changed my life and that I love more than anything. So it's really cool, and I'm definitely enjoying it. It's just different, now the hard part is thinking of workouts rather than doing the workouts, which it's different, hard in their own ways. But
Sure.
yeah, so it's been. I'm really thankful for if Ashton's any chance listening to this. Thank you very much.
We'll get into your new endeavor of coaching in a minute, but talking a little bit more about retirement and the aspects of that. Simple question for you, but I'm really curious to hear about it. You talked about kind of that realization, the 30-minute shower, and you also earlier on in the conversation talked about your dad, the role he's played in your sport and also in your life, and also his rich history in the sport of running. What was the phone call that you had with him, which I'm sure inevitably happened when you had the conversation and realization that, hey, Dad, I think it's time to move on.
You see, Dom, that right there is, I think, why I've had such a hard time is because I've never actually had the conversation with anyone. Just my wife, just Josette, and it was really uncomfortable because she could see the writing on the wall from like months out. But I just had my head down and I'm like, no, like this is what I'm doing. I'm still trying. I still want to get back to an Olympic final. I can still do this. And it just, you don't have two Achilles surgeries. And well, for me, now, so there's some athletes that have had much smoother transitions from their surgeries. But for me, it wasn't, the recovery wasn't that smooth. But so yeah, I just avoided it for so long because I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want to say, oh yeah, this rehab isn't going as well as I think it should be, or it's like, yeah, my Achilles still hurts. I wonder if we should do something different. I just was in complete avoidance. And that so now the conversation is more. It's like, hey, you helping Josette more? I was like, yeah, I'm helping Josette, but I'm doing my training too. It's like, oh, you sure about that? It's like, well, how much you doing with Josette? I'm like, oh, well, I'm doing all her stuff. They're like, okay, so you're just doing Josette's workouts. It's like, yeah, that doesn't sound like a professional runner to me. Sounds like a supportive husband. So, I think I was just really avoiding those conversations. And now that I've come to terms with it, I think I can have this without wanting to bite your head off. So yeah, Josette was actually the first conversation I had with it, and it didn't last very long because I stormed away. And then, after thinking about it, I came back. I said, "Sweetheart, thank you for asking me, but yeah, I need to figure out what's next for me." And that's when we came up with the coaching, and then yeah, I guess we can go from there.
Obviously there are going to be professional runners who listen to this, and I'm sure we could go that route, but I want to go a different route because I think the majority of listeners are a younger age, high school, college, and I think you could shed a lot of wisdom while also you can apply that same wisdom if you're a professional athlete listening. I think I've heard the conversation around stepping back from the sport in terms of being a professional, not as much as we should have it, but I've heard it. Something I've really never heard spoken about is the transition of the average varsity 5K kid who doesn't go D1 and they go to college, and running was a massive part of 4 years of their life. They showed up to practice every day. They forged friendships that they'll never forget. They raced their heart out 10 weeks in a row each fall for 4 years. They, probably that coach was either like a second mom, a second father to them, and then they move on to college and it's like, oh, do I do a marathon? Do I stop running entirely and do the freshman 15 thing? Do I start lifting crazy weights? What would you say to a high schooler listening, who they know inevitably they probably aren't going to take it to the next level, but they're really wrestling with that kind of aspect of they fell in love with running and they don't know what to do?
Well, as a strength coach, I would encourage everybody to pick up those weights. But definitely that retired athlete, get in the weight room, do something different, have some fun. Um, I I would say something that so Clayton Murphy, Olympic bronze medalist in the 800, his coach Lee Beatty, he it's definitely not his quote, but he's the one that I heard it from first. It's all skills are transferable. So the skills you learn being part of a cooperative cross country team, you can apply that to literally every other aspect of your life, and it's very undervalued. So if you being on a cross country team, you can't win with one athlete, you can't win with two athletes, you can't win with four. You need to have five athletes working towards a common goal, and that is what a lot of what life is about. Is you can do very little on your own. So you have to work with people constantly. Maybe you don't even like them, but you have to, you're stuck with them. Who hasn't done a group project with the guy that they can't stand? And learning to work towards a common goal with whether they're like-minded or just different people is something that will be part of your life forever, whether you are in finance, whether you're into coaching, whether you're in marketing. It's Teams don't go away, and you're always going to have somebody to be talking to, reporting to. So if you can learn those skills of working with a team, working with a group, and communicating with them, you're going to be much better off than somebody that did not have that experience. So, um, yeah, I would say just think about what you learned, think about your experience, and realize it's like, yeah, you did a lot more than you think. It's not easy to go to practice every day. It's not easy to be held accountable for something that you don't always love, because you know who loves every single day of practice. I think the list is quite short. So that's something that you can apply to every other aspect of your life, whether you are running in college or not, whether you're running D3, D2, D1, or yeah, you're doing the run club at your college, or you're not even in college and you're just working. You went right into the workforce. You can apply that to literally everyone, and that's why I encourage pretty much every high school kid that I see to go out for some athletic sport, whether it is cross country or a team sport that they can. But yeah, it's all skills are transferable. That's has stuck with me very, very deep into my core.
Maybe a hot topic here, but such a great conversation. Continuing it, I think a lot of high school juniors and seniors who are good in the sport have made progress. Running has become such a love and such a passion that they do want to do it at the next level. And the hot take I think here is I don't think enough kids explore what running can mean to them in other avenues outside of very competitive collegiate running. I think too often I see, so I'm from Ohio, in the big conference years like the MAC, not big conference, the like bad conference years like the MAC. And you got schools like Kent State, Toledo, Bowling Green, and these are all schools that, not to offend any athletes who run for those schools, I'm sure you work hard and are accomplished in your own right, but you can get away running D1 at those schools with, it's not the same as running for Stanford or Princeton, or you can run at those schools running much slower times. And very often I see kids, I think, sacrifice, that maybe they're academically blessed and they got into a Notre Dame, but they really want to run. And so they run at a Kent State and it doesn't really go anywhere because their ceiling was so much lower. Basically, I'm rambling here because the thought isn't fully formulated. But what's your take on generally like viewing the sport as a bigger thing, and maybe looking at your future 5-10 years ahead and evaluating it from that perspective, and not just, okay, I really want to run in college. I'm gonna or I'll see kids go D2, D3 just so they can wear a uniform and run. Like, what's your kind of opinion and take on kids running in college versus the academic side, yada yada yada? Maybe I don't have a take here. Maybe it's developing, because if you
Yeah.
really love to run, maybe it's worth it. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, Dom, I think that's a great conversation. I mean, so that's the question. Is it so if you this is my point. If you want to run in college, if you want to have a collegiate experience being on a team, there is most likely a team out there for you. Now, is it going to be the team or the school that you would go to if you weren't running? That's a very good question, and it's a different question. So the answer to that is definitely not always yes. So that is it how worth it to you is it, both the running and the education? I mean, so like it sounds like you would say you should go to the school you want to based off of the education, or is that kind of fair to say?
Maybe I'm changing my thought here as
No.
as we're discussing this. I mean,
Hey
now
man,
that I'm thinking about it, like, if running is your passion and calling, and you're willing to give up greater academics to be able to put on a jersey and run, then go for it. But I see too many 17. You're 17. And this is coming from a guy who's 19, and my brain's not fully developed either. But like, you don't really know what you're doing, and that's okay. You have to accept that. But try to put yourself in the shoes of your 30-year-old self and think, what would they appreciate the most? Or one of my favorite prompts that I use to help me make hard decisions is like, what would I want my future son to do? And I think too often you don't evaluate things from the top bottom. Like, if you go to a really good institution, you're probably going to get a better job, and then you can think about all the trickle down effects from that. Versus if you go to a really mediocre school to run, you're probably not going to get the greatest job out of it. Maybe you will, but probably not. And the futures look different. My other piece is, I think you can still run and enjoy running and get in a whole different running culture by not running in college. I think a lot of people think it's running in college or like you're done running. It's like, I don't go to college. I'm 19 and I have so many running experiences. I could run any marathon any weekend of the year. Um, I don't know. Basically, I don't know my take on this. Yeah,
I got a
it's
great example
interesting.
for you. um, Nico Young and
Hmm.
his brothers Lex and Leo. So Nico, uh, I'm I'm pretty sure he had the option to go to Stanford, and he ended up
Hmm.
choosing NAU. Not there's nothing wrong with NAU, but it's obviously not a Stanford type of academic uh, place. So Nico very much seemed to have chose his college based on the running, and I think he would have chosen Mike Smith even if Mike wasn't coaching at college. Whereas Lex and Leo, they might have chosen more of the Stanford because it's Stanford, which is, and they're both, neither of them are wrong. I wouldn't say either of them are wrong. Like, look at Nico, he made the Olympic team. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. And Lex and Leo, they're going to be getting a Stanford education, meeting a whole lot of really cool people. I don't think anyone would fault them for that. So, and they're running great, of course. That's the other thing too. So I think, yeah, I think, but Dom, I think your point being that you you can find running kind of anywhere now. Like there's I think the run club culture right now is just insane. It's so cool. It's so accessible. There's so many options that you don't have to be on a college team to find running and find love for it. Now, of course, it'll look different, but it's. I mean, look at uh, hood to coast. You know, the relay. It's like you can still find these team type environments to be a part of, and these team cultures to be a part of. That'll teach you those same lessons that you will get on a team, just not on a collegiate scene. So yeah, I think I definitely agree with you that there's a lot to consider, and it's uh it's not an easy choice. I think it's unfair that 17-year-olds have to make that decision. It seems wildly unfair, but yeah, just I would say my advice to any high school athletes right now that are looking to run in college would be to visit and look at as many universities or colleges that they can, see and talk to the athletes on the team, figure out what they stand for, what they believe in, because that's who you're going to spend the most of your time with are the athletes on the team. Look into who the coach is recruiting so that you can get a feel for what type of runner and person they are looking for on their to be on their team, and then make your decision based off of all those factors because what it looks like from the outside, it might not be on the inside, and vice versa. It's like you might be like, oh man, that team sucks, and then you talk to the guys and you're like, these are my brothers, and that's okay. Well, then I think you're gonna have a better experience than if you go to the place that looks like it'd be right for you, and then you get there and they're a bunch of jerks. So it's just a lot of things to take into account, and it's not like running in college is the end all be all. There's plenty of lifelong runners that don't even pick up running until after college. So
I think summing up my points in a probably more politically correct stance here, and this is probably my biggest piece as I'm rambling and coming up with new discoveries through it. Um, and I've said this before to friends, and I think it's the most true. Go to a college that if running got taken away from you for whatever reason, you'd be happy with it. I
perfect.
think that should be my point because you should never, even if you are Nico Young. Well, we won't talk to Nico specifically because he might be listening to this. If you're like, we'll call him Randy, and he ran 3:56 in the mile, and he can go to any school he wants. Like if you're Randy, like it's to only go to that Stanford if you enjoy Stanford outside of running as well, because life happens. You're probably going to get injured in a 4-year period. You're probably going to have periods where you don't enjoy running. And I think if you go to a school for solely something, and it goes on the other opposite end too, if you're only going to a school for the academics but don't enjoy the people or other various factors, you probably shouldn't go to that school. I think you should always have something to fall back on if the first thing doesn't work. Because again, running is a brutal, unfair sport, and you're probably going to get injured, and you need things to fall back on. So maybe that's my take. I don't know.
I love it. I love it. It's there's you know growing up, there's so much more. You need to be multifaceted. You need to have different outlets, and you need to. I would recommend you have different friend groups and whatnot. Because yeah, you're right. It's like sometimes you need a break from your running friends. Sometimes you need a break from talking about the workout the next day, and sometimes you might want to, if you're like a big math guy, maybe you don't want to talk about the latest math proof that you guys are working on. I don't know.
I want to get your take on this quote as it relates to success, and more specifically, approaching success as someone who's in high school, college, professional, or like just stepping out of the sport and feels outside pressure. I brought this quote up on a few podcasts recently just because I think it's such an interesting thing to chew on. So the quote is: success is such a strange thing. Presumably, we want success because we think a more successful life will bring us more happiness, meaning, and fulfillment. Here's the problem: we sacrifice the thing we want, happiness, for the thing which is supposed to get it, success. Failure can make you miserable, but I'm not sure success will make you happy. One of the most common dynamics I see amongst high performers is this: parents want their child to do well. Parents encourage their child to do well by praising when they succeed and criticizing when they fail. The child learns that praise and admiration is contingent on succeeding. That lesson metastasizes through early adulthood into, quote, I'm only worthy of love, acceptance, and belonging if I succeed, end quote. Now, powered by an internal feeling of insufficiency, this person is driven to achieve many things. They're prepared to outwork, outhustle, and outsuffer everyone else because they're not just running toward a life they want, they're running away from a life they fear. Success and progress ameliorates the feelings of insufficiency. Therefore, success and progress become prioritized above everything else.
Yeah, I think what's coming to me first is that success for everyone is kind of subjective. I mean, you can define what success looks like for you. I mean, if you want to make it, obviously, I'm going to polarize it here, but so if success is winning the Olympic gold medal in the 1500, okay, there's one of those every 4 years. So is everyone else a failure? You know, I don't. I would say no way. Like, is Jordan Naguse a failure for getting third place in the Olympics? Absolutely not. You know, but that's my subjective take. You know, maybe Yard looks at that as a failure. You know, I'm sure Josh Kerr looks at his silver medal as a failure, and that's his take. That's what's getting him to that level. But I guess my point is on a much smaller scale is that success is subjective, and you're in control of what you find successful. Because for the since we've been talking about college a little bit, if you come from a family that no one's gone to college and you're the first one to go to wherever, you know, whether it's for me it was you know, for even community college, whatever, it's like that's a success to the family. You know, in their eyes, they probably see that as a success. They don't care that you didn't go to Stanford or Harvard. They're just proud of you for pursuing your continued education. So I think the point the part of the quote that sat so well with me, or didn't sit so well with me, is that when you start trying to meet other people's benchmarks or other people's version of success, that's exactly right. You start chasing this unfillable void that is, it's like, yeah, it's not your happiness. It's not what you wanted necessarily. You're just trying to meet this benchmark that was put out there by, you know, what's the word I'm looking for here? By your authority. It's like, you know, you're the people you love and trust the most. And in the quote, it's the parents. If they're telling you you're only successful if you get a 4.0 and you get a full ride to college, and you have a 3.8 and you get a three-quarter scholarship, in their eyes, is that failure? Then maybe it is, but I would say objectively that's not failure. That's a successful high school career heading into a setting you up well for a collegiate a successful college experience. So what I'm trying to say is that try to search in yourself, do some soul searching on the inside and find out what you truly want. Because yeah, in general, the authority figures in your life are going to want what they think is best for you. And in general, that does mean getting into the best college you can get to, getting the best job you can getting. And in some cases, it's not true though. You know, I have an old roommate of mine, Mike Mazzacaro. He ran at Princeton. We ran at rival high schools. He was quite precocious. I was lucky I wasn't a year younger because he would have blown my doors off. But so he had a unfortunately injury filled collegiate career. Finally had a successful senior year, but so he only had 1 year of like real college running. Then afterwards, he went into finance. He went into banking. Uh, Great job, you know, getting paid a ton of money. Absolutely hated the culture. He's like, this is not for me. So he went to be a high school history teacher and coached CBA out in New Jersey, the cross country team, track team. And he's probably, I don't know what his numbers were. I imagine it was quite less as a high school history teacher over banking at a prestigious firm. But you know, so is someone going to tell him that it's like, oh, you're a failure, like you couldn't make it? He's like, no, I could have made it. I mean, I did it. I was doing it. I was good at it. I didn't like it. So now I'm doing what I love. And I'm excited to go to work every day, and I'm excited to have a bigger impact on kids' lives. He's like, my high school coaches changed my life for the better, and now I want to give that back to someone. So I would call that a success. But that, some people might call that a failure. And to him, it's a success. He's super happy. He's now the athletic director at CBA. He's only 30 years old. It's just, there's so many examples of that. And I would say that you define your own success.
100%. So much wisdom there. And I think if you can wake up each day excited for that normal, regular routine that might seem boring to outside people, but you're excited for it, you're living great. And if that means being a high school teacher, turning down millions of dollars, that is 100% a more fulfilling life than making millions and being miserable, because yeah, money doesn't matter. I think you don't want to get to the end of your life and think, oh man, I was chasing all these things, but was never actually appreciating the little day-to-day moments. So I think a lot of wisdom there. Pivoting here, closing out this conversation, people have gotten 55 minutes of wisdom from me, Robby Andrews. You're a 144 guy, 334 guy. You went to Princeton, UVA, a multiple-time NCAA champion. I'm going to keep gassing you up here. U.S. Olympian, U.S. champion, and you're channeling it all in the moment, as you mentioned a minute ago, into this coaching business, miles to go, and you're doing this with your wife. Also gassing you up here. You guys are the fastest married couple in the world. Tell people about this coaching business and how you're channeling all of this wisdom truly into this passion of yours, and how fulfilling has this journey been thus far?
Thank you, Dom. It's very, very kind of you. Josette and I, we are the fastest married milers in the world. For the time being, of course, she's the only one helping to improve our time, unfortunately. But I think she's still got a few seconds left in her. But anyway, yeah. So now, we just started Miles to Go coaching, where Miles to Go, coming from the Robert Frost poem, "Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening," where it finishes with "and miles to go before I sleep," and that's a poem that I don't know if I ever read the whole thing as a kid, but I just remember the ending, like, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, miles to go before I sleep." That it just that the imagery of that sat with me for so long that and then when I met Josette, she had a "Miles to Go" tattoo on her underneath her ribs, which I thought was super edgy and super cool. That what I get from that is that there's no one path to go. Kind of what we were just talking about. That success looks different for everyone. And everyone's path can look differently. So what works for one person might not work for someone else. Like if someone's working 7 to 7 and they have to run at 5 a.m., it's like, well, they're going to have something. They're going to have different needs than somebody that is working like 9 to 12 so that they can work out in the afternoon. There's so many examples of it, and so that's where Miles to Go comes in. Is that we're looking to help you bridge the gap in your running to go from good to being great. And if you're looking for a creative way to get it done, the amount of experience that Josette and I have in the running world, we've seen a lot of these cases where, yeah, you might be stuck. You might not be wondering what the best next step is, and that's where we can have that or objective look into, like, a snapshot into what your life looks like, your training, and say, this is what we recommend based off of X, Y, and Z. So I just think coaching is so much more than just sending somebody a workout. It's connecting with the person, and it's coaching them in kind of all areas of their life. So Miles to Go, it's like, yeah, we who knows how far you have to go in your career or your life. It's like, but we'll get you there, and it doesn't have to be the same way that someone else did it. It doesn't mean you won't be successful if you haven't had success doing it the way someone else does it. So that's kind of a huge part of what we believe in, is that we can, if you want to be great, we'll help you. And that's what makes me excited about coaching, is working with different athletes with different needs. Whether you want to make your varsity team in high school, or I have a couple athletes I'm working with now that are trying to make the Olympic trials in the marathon in a few years, and so we're working on this 4-year plan right now to get them to the Olympic trials, and it's the roadmap is what we call it. You got to have a roadmap on where to go, and that's you got miles to go until you get there. So let's make it happen.
In 30 to 45 seconds or less, how would you describe your coaching philosophy?
I would say it's to help you find what your best route to success is. It's like, yeah, I know the science. I read the books. I understand running. It's the only thing I've ever truly understood in this life. So getting you to find the best path for your success is what I'm going to help you look for. And if it looks like this for one person, then great, let's go down it. And if it's something else, I'm not afraid to try something new. I'm not afraid to get creative with it. But it's going to be rooted in science. But I really enjoy the creative side of it.
I came across this prompt a few weeks ago and I loved it. And it's kind of like cheesy and corny, as a lot of inspirational stuff is. But I think a lot of times when someone says that, like, it's corny, a lot of times there's truth to it. And it was like, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? How big would you dream? So, in regards to miles to go, as you're kind of launching this, getting more invested and into it and trying to grow it, if you knew you couldn't fail with this coaching business, how big would you dream? And an easier way of putting that is, what is the end goal, and how big do you want to see this thing become?
Yeah, I want to help as many people as I can. I just my coach. I had such amazing coaches in my life that they had the biggest impact on me, and of course, one of them was my dad. But he was a coaching figure for me. So, but then of course, Coach Vij at Princeton, at UVA in Princeton, he really did change my life. And seeing the coaches that Josette's come across with Coach Fox and Coach Dathan now, it's coaches can have a really big impact on someone's life, and I want to have that positive impact on as many people as possible. So what does that mean? It means, yeah, I would love to coach I want to love to coach these high caliber athletes. I'd love to see athletes end up at the Olympic Games, Olympic finals, Olympic podiums. I'd also love to help these athletes that don't really have much else going on, and that they're looking for running as their outlet, and helping them use running to better their lives. I think it's yeah, that's the thing about running, is that it's so there's not just one type of person that runs. It seems like it's universal, that like everyone everyone has the ability to run, to some capacity, and what do they want to use it for? So I want to I want to help people find out what they want to use their running for, and see how far they can go, whether that is to make an Olympic team, or whether that is to just get that life experience while they get ready to enter the workforce. It's yeah, I just want to spread the love of running and what it taught me, and share it with as many people as possible.
Speaking to how big this sport is, this stat is mind-boggling, and I think it needs to be repeated more because it's a fact. In 2021, surveys were taken, and in the United States alone, almost 50 million people participated in running and jogging, and it's like, our sport is massive. Like,
Wow. Yes.
we us runners think that it's such a niche thing, and it's like, you go two doors down to your neighbor, he probably jogs in some form. Like, running is truly like a universal love. And yes, there are people that hate it and can't stand it. And if you tell someone you run, you're always going to get that comment of, "Oh, I couldn't run to the refrigerator or whatever if I tried." But a lot of people run. It's a popular sport. A question I do want to get your take on in regards to coaching and the coaching business, because I think it needs to be stated more. And as someone who isn't a coach, I feel like I can confidently state this. I don't think running coaches, one, charge enough, and two, I think there isn't a love and appreciation for running coaches and running businesses. And this comes from someone who played other sports growing up, and I played for in middle school, I played for my church, so St. Joan of Arc, and it wasn't like particularly like wealthy or anything. So this was like if you go two churches down, you'd probably find the same thing as well.
Uh-huh.
The kids on the team were a part of like just the wildest club sports as middle schoolers. In 8th grade, a bunch of them, this was my basketball team, a bunch of them also played soccer. This team wasn't even the best team in Ohio, yet alone our city of Toledo, Ohio. And the parents were paying that summer for them to fly to Europe to play in a tournament. Not even the best team in the city. And the parents
Wow.
were paying to fly them to Europe. And you see that in baseball, lacrosse, hockey. Like, I could go down the list of sports that parents legitimately pay thousands for. And I'm not insinuating that we should necessarily do that with running, but I do think, to the parents out there or kids out there, like, it makes sense to invest in your kids' sports. And I'm kind of shocked the extent to which we haven't with running and people like a Robby Andrews, where, like, there's no doubt I would have been much better than I was in high school if you coached me than my coach, who his first year ever coaching was my first year in high school. That's just a fact of life. And that's okay. I had a great high school career. My whole point in saying all this, what's your general take on just like more people investing into running coaches, and like seeing it as a true investment of, yeah, by working with me, life could happen and maybe you'll get injured and maybe you won't improve, but most likely you're going to get a lot better. And someone like you is a coach for a good reason. You've accrued so much wisdom throughout the years and you know what you're doing. That was a very
Well,
long rant in question, but hopefully it
no,
made sense.
oh yeah. Well, I thank you for articulating all that, Don. Because it's funny. I'm actually gonna disagree with you on this. I would
Okay.
say, I would say it in general, most high school kids, like, I don't know everything you said. How did you finish that statement? You said you had a fine high school career.
Yeah, I had a fun high school career, but I coached myself. My coach allowed me
Uh,
to coach myself
okay. Dang it. Well, you got me.
because I knew what I was doing.
Yeah,
I, like, in
yeah.
eighth grade, I read The Science of Running by Steve Magnus. Like, I was like
Oh,
the
cool.
freak
Okay.
back in the day.
Okay. No,
So
no.
he wasn't. I was like, I like literally eighth grade. And I think I've told this story maybe on the podcast once, but I wanted to meet with him before I even signed up for cross country because, in my words, I wanted to make sure he didn't screw me up. I was so stuck up back in the day. I've definitely never said this because I texted my family group chat this the other week as I was remembering it. Eighth grade track season. The distance coach had like literally no clue what he was doing. And again, I was like so fixated on running, cared way too much about it, was like so type A. I didn't show up to a single track practice my eighth grade season. I only ran the races because
Wow.
his idea for a distance runner was like pure sprint, like plyometrics, like all the stuff that you probably shouldn't, like no endurance whatsoever. And so
Hmm.
I was so, yeah, I'm a terrible person. I was very stuck up, very fixated on what I thought worked. So I'm the bad person to ask that question.
Uh, but still, it's like, I mean, also, I feel like a coach could have had a great impact on you if it was a conversation and not necessarily, hey, Dom, you have to do this. And if you asked why, and he said, because I said so. I don't know what it was, but, it would have been kind of cool to work as a, kind of a cooperatively on that, maybe just, I don't know your exact situation, but just from like the coaching side, if an athlete came to me like that, like, oh, I read Jack Daniels and he wants me running at this pace, and I would, just have a dialogue with them to figure out like where that's coming from, and why they think that would be better than me, the paces I gave them or whatever. But so
Right.
anyway, my answer, I would say in general, most high school kids are better off on their high school team because of having the ability to run with your friends every day, and having the you have to deal with people who you might not want to deal with. I didn't love everyone on my high school team. I didn't love everyone on my college team, but having that experience to deal with that definitely made me better from it than if I had just been going out and running by myself every day. Now, yeah, again, would I have been a better athlete? It's like, oh, maybe, but also maybe not. If I, from like the time I was in seventh grade or eighth grade, if I was just going to the track by myself or just with my dad, uh, and just that was like the only interaction I had with the sport was a coaching figure and a father figure with my dad. I don't know if I would have had the same love for it because I would have had a different view on it. So and I'm not saying that everyone that works with a private coach in high school doesn't get to run with anybody, because I think there's a lot of great coaches out there that are working with high school kids and making it uh, inter intertwined with the high school team. But it's I would say in general, unless it's like a really not so great situation or environment, then I would recommend going with the high school because here I am talking about that when my dad was the one coaching me in high school, so I wasn't using my high school coach. But we in cross we also, it was a weird situation. We had a different coach for cross, indoor, and outdoor, so there was no continuity at all, which was really frustrating. And indoor we had no distance coach, which was really frustrating. So I like the first day of indoor track, I went to the head coach and I said, hey, who's what are we doing, like who's the coach? And he said, oh well, like don't you just like go for a run? So it's like, all right, definitely needed some help there. But I would say in general, working with your high school team, and getting to work with your teammates, would be the best route. But yeah, there's definitely a use case
Interesting.
for yeah. That's just
My
how I
only my
feel.
only rebuttal
Hmm.
here, my only rebuttal here are we see these examples of Newberry Parks where they run 365 days, they meet 365 days a year, which probably isn't the case, but I'll use that as an extreme.
Yeah.
I think that gets assumed as the norm. So as someone who grew up in a semi
Uh,
small town in Ohio, we
hmm.
probably had 2 out of the 30 teams meet year round. And I think a lot of kids
Hmm.
are on their own in the winter season as well as in the summer season. Summer, generally, kids will get together, but even within that, there is a ton of flexibility in terms of mileage and what can be done. So, my only rebuttal here is I think there is half a year legitimately where there are a lot of times for most kids is no direction. And then also within the year, so I actually had an amazing relationship with my coach, and how that worked was, he had the guys run like 3 miles, on their easy days, whatever.
Yeah.
And I would be like, I'm going to go like 7, right? So I would run the
Hmm.
3 miles with the guys, and then I'd just add on after, or I'd like show up a little earlier so I could do 4 before and then 3. I think with workouts, that's where it gets a little trickier. But even that, there can be some crossover. So my only rebuttal is I think, um, yeah, it's not year round, one, for most kids,
Hmm.
unless it's a really great program. And if it is a really great program, kids aren't going to be looking for a coach anyways.
Fair.
And
Yeah.
two, I think there can be more crossover, specifically when most of running is easy mileage, a lot of it. And I think there can be crossover there. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, no, no. You're absolutely right. I'm definitely not taking that into account because a lot of as I say that, yeah, my because I remember our outdoor track coach, we asked him if he would help us with the indoor stuff because we're like, yeah, you're going to be coaching us in 2 months, like can you help us out? And he said no, like I don't have the time. So then it was like, well, if he's not going to help us indoor, he's definitely not going to help us during the summer. And it's so it's not always the case where the athletes have direction, like you said. So yeah, that's a great point, Dom. And I guess so for the athletes out there listening to this that are looking to be better, get better, run more, whatever. Uh, Talk to their coach because you can still have a good relationship with them, as Dom's saying, even if you're going to coach yourself, and then see what they're open to. See if maybe they don't have time because they have another job, or they just they have family, and then if it just have be open with them. It's something that I think it was my high school coach. He said, he's like, don't lie to me. He's like, it's this is a really important relationship, and he's like, I'm not going to get mad at you for not doing the mileage or whatever. He's like, I just need to know so that I don't mess up the rest of the training. And because at first it was always like, oh man, coach said to run 6 miles and we only did 5. Like we're just gonna tell him we did 6. And it's like, okay, well if you do that over a really long period of time, it's like, well that's not good. Now that's not the training. So if he's writing the workouts based off of assuming you did this, then it's going to change everything. So anyway, it's a little bit of a tangent, but just be
All
honest
good.
with your coach. Have that relationship, and because if they truly want what's best for you, then they would be okay with you looking for outside coaching while they're not available. But then they want you to be that'll get you better for when they do have the time, or it is like the official practice times. So um, that's
And I'll
cool.
go
I
a
like
step
the. Thank you,
further.
Dom. Yeah.
I'll go a step further and say the best coaches are ones who are self-aware of their own limitations and would see someone like you or someone else and think, "Oh, you got really better over the summer. What did the training look like? Could I have a conversation with them to then improve their own coaching or use someone like you as outside input?" And the final thing I'd say here is if the kids listening to this like I know kids who listen to this podcast, I meet them at events, I DM them over Instagram. Like you're a killer if you're listening. If you're 76 minutes into a podcast, you're not messing around, right? Like you want to be good at the sport of running. And for most of these kids, it's like go D1, win national championships in high school, make national meets in high school, one day make an NCAA meet. And they might see someone like you or some other coach and think like, okay, that's what it's going to take. That person knows what it takes to make those meets. My high school coach doesn't. And I think, again, they have to have that conversation with their parents, with their high school coach. But I think there's validity in seeing someone like you and being like, that person aligns with the goals that I want to hit. Like we were talking about, sitting with yourself, reflecting, what are my goals? That person will get me to them. This person won't. You have those hard conversations. I love the quote, everything you want is on the other side of a few hard conversations. So, um,
100%. Mm-hmm.
I think you've said a lot of interesting things, and I think there is unnecessary tension a lot of times with people who bring in outside coaching. But I think there also is a subset of people that want to go D1. They see someone like you or someone who knows what they're doing, and they know you'll unlock the tools to do so. And I think it's a logical choice at that point if the situation isn't great with their high school
Yeah,
coach.
and that's a great point, Dom. Is that I also work with coaches who trying to figure out how to periodize their schedule or periodize their training or whatnot. If they are a first year coach like your coach was, getting them to figure out how to organize it, how to talk to their team. So talking. I also enjoy coaching other coaches. That's kind of something that definitely is not very popularized, but it's like asking for help is one of the hardest things in the world for some people, including myself. And if you just ask for help, most people are super willing to help you out. You just have to ask, and it took me way too long to figure that out in life, and I'm still struggling with it. But you really do just have to ask. And as an athlete, if you go to your coach and say, "Coach, can you help me get better?" Most likely they're going to say, "Yeah, okay, how, like, what, let's work together on that." They're not going to say, "Oh, sorry, I don't have time, I don't care." That's generally not why coaches get into it, is for like just to do it. Generally they want what's best for you, and they want to help you be the best you can be. And I would say, yeah, so whether you're a coach or an athlete listening to this, it's okay to ask for help. It's encouraged to ask for help. People generally have that tendency to help you if you ask.
Miles to go. Where can people learn more about it? Get more information about it? Where would you send people from this podcast?
Oh, we got an Instagram. Josette is working on that every day. She's trying. We're trying to get some videos up there, trying to get some tips and clips up on there. But then we also have a website, miles2gocoaching.com, where we have all of our information. We're super transparent. We just want to. If you're coming to us, we realize you're looking to be better. So we're not trying to hide anything. We just want to make it streamlined to get to you. So having that conversation, initiating that, and seeing what the next steps are.
Robby, final question for you. The question I ask every guest on every single podcast. If you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him?
Man, I'm gonna go bold. I'm making him a tenderloin, and
Okay.
he's. I don't know. I'm not afraid to be an idiot sandwich over here, but I love steak. Josette loves steak, so I make it quite a bit. Gotta have your iron. Um, but I think I wouldn't mess it up because, well, I probably would now that I'm talking about it. But I think because I enjoy making it so much that I wouldn't even care if he tore it to shreds, because I know that me and Josette would eat every last bite of it.
If he gets rid of it.
Right?
Oh, that's
even,
great.
even if he doesn't finish it, it's like, all
You're
right,
like, eat less
I'll
so we have more. Eat less so we have
exactly.
more. You can hate it,
But
Gordon.
no, and then it's just yeah, I don't know, big tenderloin guy over here.
Robby, really appreciate the conversation. don't waste your time doing this, but if you want, you can scroll through the history of the running effect, and I think we probably only have, I don't know, less than 5 episodes that have ever made it 80 minutes. And generally, I try to cut off episodes at 50 or 60 minutes, even if they make it that far. And today's conversation was so fun and free flowing, and some good hot takes and debate towards the end that we made it to the 80-minute mark. You're in that exclusive club. And no, I just really want to thank you for taking the time to share so much wisdom and, yeah, share a lot of insights from your incredibly successful career. And truly, like, you just seem like such an amazing guy who really wants the best for those in his life. So keep crushing it, man. I am full on Robby Andrews cheerleader from here on out, and can't wait to see this coaching business explode because it's got two great minds behind it. So keep crushing, man.
Dom, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing so much knowledge and love for the sport. That's all I'm looking for. So thank you for having these conversations. Not being afraid to ask some questions, get different perspective, different takes. It's let's grow this sport as much as we can, and it really does start with conversations like this. So, Dom, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute blast, and best of luck to you in your very young career.